Tea time. Welcome everybody, Souldin and the Grin brothers here, and it's time for another episode of Tea. Okay, so I don't actually have a tea with me. So in that case, I'd say let's call this E3 time. More specifically, E3 2018 time. Because in these videos that have this intro, I shall be covering my thoughts on E3 2018. More specifically, again, I'm using that a lot, the conferences of E3 2018. For part 1, I shall be covering the conferences of EA, Bethesda, Square Enix, and Ubisoft, whereas in part 2, I shall of course be covering the console makers of Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo's conferences. I hope the presentations will be entertaining, and I'll just be sharing small snippets of my thoughts of the games they showed off in the overall presentation, what I was hoping for, and what they ended up showing. Some of them will be easy to compress, some of them won't be, but in any case, I hope you'll enjoy hearing me share my thoughts, and I'd love to hear your own thoughts. Please do enjoy! Now let's get on with the video. So it turns out I do have tea. So I guess this is also kind of a tea time. That was convenient timing. Anyway, I've just finished watching the EA conference, so I figured I'd share my thoughts. I'm not a fan of sports games, unless it's basically the Mario ones, pretty much. And I'm not a fan of Star Wars, so that's a big chunk of the EA conference that I already knew in advance wasn't going to appeal to me. Still, I had hopes going into it. Vain hopes, which I tend to hope for each year. For instance, I always hope for each year a new Road Rash game or a new Henry Hatsworth game. Yet again, I am disappointed that that didn't happen. And yet, surprisingly, one of my hopes for this conference did happen. I had a few sort of vague hopes. For Rafi to be happy, I'd love for Spore to return, but that didn't happen. And I'm actually kind of curious about their old sort of helicopter sort of strike series, Desert Strike, Jungle Strike and such. I think a compilation of that, or, ports of it to modern systems would be pretty cool. But of course that didn't happen. But one thing that really did get me excited about their conference is actually one thing I was hoping for, is that I've been really impressed with EA's EA original thing, even though I haven't played any of the games myself, but that has resulted in great sort of looking games such as Unravel, Fee, A Way Out, and I was really happy about the idea of EA continuing the EA originals, because I think it's a really good idea, and it shows a better side to them, and helps promote, diversify the games they have to show at their conferences anyway, and they did not disappoint in that regard. Surprisingly, Unravel 2 was announced, and that looks really, well, it's tragic but charming. It's you got adorable creatures that everyone fell in love with at the EA's E3 previously, and then you kill off everyone it loves. Yeah, Yarny loses everything, but then finds another Yarn fellow to become friends with, possibly lovers. They're Yarn, I'm not sure whether that's a thing, and they connect up, and it's like Knuckles Chaotix, but with Yarn and puzzle elements and such, and it's pretty cool, and always charming, and there seems to be a good mix of puzzle and, excitement to it. Sea of Solitude was the other EA original. I'm not sure what to think of it. It looks gorgeous, and it's got good thematic going to it, exploring the concept of loneliness and how loneliness can transform us into monsters and such. But I'm not sure what to make of the gameplay. It seems to just be mostly running about and running away from things, and I've yet to see anything that's specifically, what you do, aside from running away and exploring. And that's kind of really the only thing to talk about. Yeah, I thought Anthem would look pretty cool, but it's a more of a multiplayer focus sort of thing. It's single player, but it's kind of like, I guess, you get your allies join you in the overworld sort of thing, so not really my cup of tea. I mean, it was not really ever going to be. It's a third-person shooter, but I thought it could have sparked some interest in me, but nah. Battlefield 5 continues to be a series which looks cool, but not my cup of tea. Good for people who play it. It seems to be one of the only franchises that EA owns that they actually respect and put a lot of care and attention into, because it always looks pretty cool. Still not as cool as having the sort of blimp attacking in the previous one. That was hugely cool. But hey, it's still looking good. So for fans of the Battlefield series, it still looks good. And the only other thing really I feel worth mentioning is Command & Conquer Rivals. It looks really cool. Looks really simple but fun, and with a good amount of strategy to it. Despite its simplicity. Too bad it's a mobile game. That would have been pretty brilliant on the 3DS or Wii U actually. But no, it's a mobile game. But yeah, EA's conference, not much to really excite me, but hey, maybe there was something there for you in it, in which case, I'm glad you got to enjoy something of the EA conference. Really cool to see Unreal 2, and moving on to the next conference now. It is 4 o'clock in the morning, and I've just finished watching the Bethesda conference because it started at 2:30 a.m, and dear gosh, it lasted for an hour and a half. And Bethesda were committed to using all that hour and a half as they could, even though they didn't really have enough things to actually show for it in that hour and a half. To summarise the Bethesda conference, it is the best, worst, best conference, if that makes any sense. There are so many wonderful moments to it, but so many terrible moments to it. I'm actually quite surprised that I was enjoying the Bethesda conference at points more than I was expecting, and other points, regardless of of how I've been staying up all this time, a lot of it was really putting me to sleep. The main thing, which was a problem I'd say, is the fact that, as mentioned, they didn't really have enough games to show. In fact, I think they had less games shown here than they did last year. A lot of the cases of it was they waffled on a lot. There was a lot of talking. It took 13 minutes for them to get on to actually sort of presenting their first game, which was Rage 2. And yeah, there was a lot of waffle, talking and repeating the same things over and over again. And unlike the Microsoft conference one, this one just kind of really put me to sleep a lot of the time. I really was constantly having to force myself awake. A lot of boring muffling like that, and a lot of it was focused on like mobile stuff or like DLC. And there was also, like a lot of them do, just a bunch of teasers. But a lot of the teasers they were doing was for the bigger games, which you'd think would have some stuff to really focus on, such as their brand new single player IP, Starfield. It was just the image of the title. That was basically it. Likewise, there were people already going nuts over Elder Scrolls 6 was announced. Yeah, we knew they'd probably be working on an Elder Scrolls 6. It's just a title. There's nothing to get excited about from just a title. That couldn't be waiting until like 2021. That isn't to say that there wasn't good things about this Bethesda conference, because there were good things about that conference. They had a great sense of humour throughout. They were quite funny about how a lot of their games got leaked continuously. They had a whole section based around the Skyrim joke, where they did a whole advert of if you could play Skyrim using the Alexa, and so voice commands and everything. That was pretty darn amazing. Fallout 76 looks fairly cool. Yeah, at the same time, the whole playing with other people thing, whilst the cool aspect which a lot of people were asking for before, I feel like might bring it down to a degree. It depends on what what options you have for saying it, whether you can choose to not be with other people or not and have them as NPCs. And the weirdest part about everything that was talked about is that honestly one of the best looking things they had on show was a mobile game. Elder Scrolls Blades looks very impressive for a mobile game, and actually looks like a nice simplified mini version of the Elder Scrolls series, which is pretty darn cool. I think that looks quite appealing, but it's not my sort of game. Again, none of it's my sort of games. Bethesda don't really do any games for me. That was kind of a hope to see if they could make a game for me, but no, not really. Rage 2, maybe. It's a more faster paced sort of game than say Fallout, but less RPG elements to it. But at the same time, it's a shooter game, so not much appeal there. They did start the entire Rage 2 with a musical. Again, it took 13 minutes for them to get onto it. But yeah, Bethesda had lots of good moments amongst they were just clearly dragging it out for what little content they had. But there was funny moments and fun moments, so good on them. Good on you, Bethesda. Well, I do say, I reckon that the Dragon Quest XI had a spot too much British in it, wouldn't you agree? Yeah, Square Enix's conference, I just watched that. More of a, I think they could, not a slideshow, they used a different word for it, but it was a 30-minute presentation wherein it was just game trailer after game trailer. There was no person coming up. The most amount of talking was done is that they showed a few people pre-recorded doing conversations about the stuff, but no live stage event sort of thing. But honestly, it worked pretty well, and Square Enix managed to get a good slide reel, I think it was. A good selection of their games shown off and presented pretty well, and a lot of them at least had details, even if some of them were just small trailers. There was only two that were really teasers, and both are 2019 games and beyond. But otherwise, the rest of their games actually showed stuff off. Funny that. And of course, as noted from the start of it, Dragon Quest XI was one of the big games they ended up showing off. It's getting its English release. It's coming out in September. I'm not sure if that includes the Nintendo Switch version as well, which is what I'm looking forward to. But Dragon Quest XI is coming out worldwide September with a special edition. And of course, it's coming out with an English dub, which is very, very British. Apparently, it went to the same people as Xenoblade Chronicles, because almost everyone was British. There was like one or two other accents, and those were also like sort of French and such. So the Europe area of countries and such, Europe land as it were, is where they're getting a lot of their voice actors from the seams of it. But that was cool. But that would be the second sort of coolest looking game I saw there. The coolest one, of course, was still Octopath Traveler, but that only had a short little trailer for it, a little 3-4 minute trailer, and they didn't really talk much about it. But then again, the game's coming out in July, so there isn't much need to talk about Octopath Traveler. They already had a demo out for it. They've already explained each of the characters and what they can do, and all the sort of fancy little systems. They showed up like a month ago, that sort of stuff. They kind of got it out of the way before E3. I already know I want Octopath Traveler, so there's not really anything they can do to convince me further. Oh, that's a thing I should have checked out. I should have checked about getting a pre-order, making sure I pre-ordered the special edition of that as well. In any case, there were some other games. Like I said, they revealed 2 new games, 2 new IPs at that. The Quiet Man and Babylon's Fall. Not much is known about any of them. These were the ones that they just teased. Everything else they gave some information about. The Quiet Man kind of looks like an urban area 3D beat-em-up. That's the only thing I can summarise. They had what I thought was live action. Could have been live action, and then they transitioned to a small snippet of gameplay, which is just a guy beating up on some thugs, and this guy has multiple zips, because that's how you know it's a Square Enix game. Aside from that, the other new IP they've got is Babylon's Fall, which has this cool little red string sort of thing, but otherwise it kind of looks like a Souls-styled game. Not as in gameplay-wise, but as in design-wise. It looks, the dark, medieval sort of design to it. But, we only saw a little cinematic trailer of it, and this little red string mechanic from the looks of it. I wonder if that ties into gameplay, would be pretty cool. And that's being made by Platinum Games, which, hey, that's pretty interesting. Out of those, Quiet Man has my interest more so than Babylon's Fall, but we didn't get much information revealed, only teasers so far. Aside from that, Monster Hunter World and Final Fantasy Online are having a crossover. Like, that really confused me when it popped up. Square Enix presentation was suddenly Monster Hunter World! And, as mentioned, I may have mentioned the Xbox One conference, Nier Automata is coming on to Xbox One, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, Octopath Traveler is there, so that's always got me excited. And I'm really glad to see that Dragon Quest XI is finally getting more details on its worldwide release, because I'm actually really interested in playing such a big budgeted turn-based RPG. It's still turn-based, and I love that, and it's got a ton of money and effort put into it. Likewise with Octopath Traveler, though with less 3D. So yeah, that was Square Enix's. For such a short amount of time, they did a banging good job. Throwing a bit of British there. For the first time during this E3, my stream froze. But I thought, isn't a problem. It's only Ubisoft's Starlink Battle for Atlas. I'm sure I'm not missing out on much. I managed to get the stream to play back again. I just, reset it. And what do I reset? Suddenly it brings me back on. Suddenly it shows off Star Fox. And I'm thinking, what the heck? Star Fox in Starlink Battle for Atlas in the Nintendo Switch version. That's a thing. It looks amazing. That just came out of nowhere, but suddenly I now have an actual interest in the game. Admittedly, it's very hard to still be invested even with the inclusion of Star Fox characters, although that is a big draw, because from what I gathered, from what little I did see, whilst it is a space game, possibly, cool space aerial combat, it also appears to be an open world game, which, of course, is a bit of a turn off for me, which unfortunately is a problem with most of Ubisoft's presentation, because a lot of their games kind of follow the idea of open world or shooters. Much the same with the Bethesda situation. A lot of the games just weren't going to appeal to me. But it's not like Ubisoft don't have games that don't appeal to me. It's just that they're not really investing much time into any of them at the moment. For instance, I had hoped for a new game, sort of UbiArt game, such as maybe something related to Child of Light. Maybe not specific Child of Light, a spiritual successor would do just fine, but something like that, or a successor to the 3D Rayman. Could be a 3D Rayman, could be Tonic Trouble coming back, or just a new IP based off that. But no, I wasn't going to get anything from like that this conference. The one hope I did have, which did come true, was weirdness. And when the E3 conference of Ubisoft starts off with dancing pandas, which for some reason I put here as dancing panding, yeah, you know, the weirdness is straight away. And of course, the new Just Dance game got announced, and when that happens, weirdness ensues. But weirdness also ensued with the announcement of the new Trials game as well. So a lot of weirdness in Ubisoft. You can rely upon them for that. I wasn't too impressed with Ubisoft's conference at first, but well, I was impressed with some of the opening stuff, such as Beyond Good and Evil 2, and of course, how weird they always start with Just Dance games. Beyond Good and Evil 2, I haven't played the first one, but I've heard it's a very Legend of Zelda-esque game, which certainly appeals to me, and Beyond Good and Evil 2's sort of little trailer here was quite funny and charming. However, from the looks of the gameplay, it's pre-alpha gameplay. It worries me a little bit. It kind of looks like, you know, I was kind of hoping for old-school Zelda-style gameplay if Beyond Good and Evil was known for that. But the looks of it looks like a very expansive game. Much like my problem with Gravity Rush 2, I feel games can end up creating a flaw for themselves when they think bigger is better, and it looks too big to me, honestly. That said, it does have co-op, which is a really cool feature. So, aside from, of course, Star Fox in Starlink Battle for Atlas, which is a heck of a surprise. Hey, Miyamoto appearing always improves every E3 conference, even when it's not his own. The other sort of big thing was, of course, they showed off Mario Rabbids DLC, namely the Donkey Kong Adventure. It's interesting to see that Donkey Kong replaces Mario, so you're not forced in having Mario in your pie, and instead DK takes the protagonist role, which is really cool. Looks really nice, and you explore more than jungles. You explore the coastal areas and the mines and temples as well. And that's coming out June 26th. I've still yet to play the Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle, but I'm interested in doing so, possibly for Grin Brothers. Depends on how things go. Aside from that, not really anything that really interests me, though I will give Ubisoft a thumbs up. Skull and Bones did have plenty of gameplay to show it off, so good one there, Ubisoft. You had a lot of gameplay to really pitch that. And transference is a pretty interesting thing, though the idea of using film is storytelling alongside gameplay has already been done by Microsoft and Quantum Break, though this appears to be a very different way because transference is a horror game, certainly from the looks of it. Anyway, the Ubisoft had a okay conference, but there was no Ubisoft, none of the games that really appealed to me, but heck, basically the only things that really had me happy was the Nintendo-related content that was in it, which I'm sure I'll be seeing again in Nintendo's conference. And with that, E3 2018 time Part 1 has come to an end. As per usual, I would love to hear your opinions. Feel free to share your thoughts on both what I've commented here, my personal highlights and thoughts on the E3 2018 conferences that I've covered, as well as sharing your own thoughts of the games announced at E3 2018. I'd love to hear them and, you know, comments and all that. I'd love to discuss these sort of things with you. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed these videos, and cheerio!